Reviews are helpful in that they are social and encourage people to talk about games, and can offer viewpoints or angles of games that we wouldn't consider ourselves. They also encourage people to take a critical look at games and to understand them with a level of depth. However, the idea of user reviews bombing is a completely different dimension of media reviews, something that is much less straightforward than simply evaluating the perceived merits of a piece of media. User reviews bombing is what happens when a reviews page for any media receives a noticeable number of negative reviews, directly in response to some perceived flaw. First, when something like a game receives a flood of negative reviews, it is a type of action, done in response to any aspect of a game that is seen by enough people to be loathsome. This negative item that people are reacting to could be DLC practices, a story or character decision, a response to perceived lack of competent functionality in a game if a game is too buggy to play, for example, just to name a few. While review flooding of any sort can be coordinated, it's not a necessary characteristic of user review bombing, and in fact, the more spontaneous and uncoordinated the review flooding is, the greater the perceived authenticity of the flooding may be insofar as it is meant to be an expression of audience sentiment. There are those who may flood the review page of a game after hearing about it on social media or a gaming news website. The entire purpose of user review bombing is to make a statement, to such a degree that this purpose ultimately overshadows the original purpose of a review being the critical evaluation of a game. Reviews are supposed to be critical evaluations of any piece of media, and it could be the case, for example, that one game is generally perceived to be great, but has consumer-unfriendly DLC practices, which could still result in a decently positive average of review scores. A professional review may make statements in their reviews, whether reflecting their personal beliefs or not, but the fundamental purpose of a review is to be critical of a game first and foremost, even if reviews are fundamentally part opinion-based. Professional reviews must express a sense of authenticity and fairness to the craft of game reviewing, and a sense of respect and trust to the audience. The fundamental question of a review of critical evaluation is why, and a person's review is supposed to be filled with proper justifications of why they evaluate a game to be good or bad based on a variety of highlighted facets. Decisions have to be explained in honesty and in fairness. That being said, professional reviewers' own evaluations can be used to effect change or to prompt developers or publishers to take notice, even if they are not a part of a user review bombing movement. After all, user reviews bombing is just meant to make a statement for other game players, members of gaming media, and for other game industry developers or publishers to take notice, whether they be the developers of the game being reviewed or for developers of other games, so that they will take notice and avoid the backlash being heaped upon that particular bombed game when they work on their own titles. Thus far, this video has spent a decent amount of time spent talking about authenticity. One fundamental issue with user review bombing can lie with the problem of evaluating authenticity. It's not likely going to be the case that a mass gathering of players are going to flood game review pages out of boredom. They may do so to make a statement about one aspect of a game that they do not like, but it's rare that players will band together simply to tank the review average of a game. We generally assume that, even if it's not outwardly expressed, when it comes to user review bombing, it's happening for a reason. Something in the game is prompting that sort of reaction from players. But what may come across as inauthentic is the general consensus on the quality of the game itself. While it can be the case that many people don't like one game's DLC practices or story writing, it's not always clear to the degree to which that these concerns reflect a serious issue with most people playing a particular game. In that sense, a problem with negative review flooding is that it sort of distorts the real, non-professional average evaluation of a game. If someone visited the Metacritic page for a game and simply looked at the user score section for a game, such as Fallout 76, they may simply take that score at face value without understanding why the game received such a low score and avoid the game altogether. Reflexively dismissing games with a score perceived to be too low, or only internalizing how well a game is scored rather than understanding why the score was received, is an issue with the practice of assigning grades or scores to a game in general. But this is more of an issue in user review bombing because there are many more players out there compared to professional reviewers, and they can exert far more influence over a game's average player rating because of it. You might worry about whether or not any average score is real, but it's by design that averages should reflect the sentiment of many people. While user reviews may be open to anybody who can use a computer, if there are any significant number of bad reviews rather than just one or two or any small number, it should invite someone to take pause, particularly if that person has an investment in seeing how people respond to a particular game, whether they be a fan or a developer or publisher. In that sense, there's a beauty in the way that averages are used to express opinions. Speaking on the how of user review bombing, the crafting of those reviews doesn't usually work in practice in the same way that professional reviews do, in the sense that professional reviews are expected to reflect a certain level of quality or thoroughness, or else the reviewer cannot be paid for writing reviews. User review bombing can comprise both lengthy, well-written reviews and brief, poorly written reviews, or reviews written with generally low effort. In fact, it tends to be the case that user review bombing will feature reviews written with minimal effort, as the general purpose of the user review bombing is to make a statement and then monitor reception to that statement. In this case, that the review is low effort, such that it's deliberately meant to represent a statement, you know what to expect from that review. It's not a high-quality, in-depth review. It's something primarily drawing attention to something that they dislike. We tend to expect differently of reviews that aren't part of floods. It's just something of a stereotype that reviews that are part of floods are low effort. But it should be said that one of the key aspects of user review bombing is that besides issuing a negative score, the review should at minimum draw attention to the issue that the person making the review finds reprehensible. What would be the point of flooding the review page of a game without giving any sort of reason as to why it's being done? It won't encourage any effective action or notice from gaming media or the gaming industry, because they will see the negative flood of reviews as occurring for no reason. And that concludes our video on user review bombing. Let us know what you think about our video in the comment section below and flood it with any such comments that reflect your thoughts. User review bombing is something that stretches not just to media, but to consumer products as well. And as always, thanks for watching. And that about does it for this video. If you enjoyed what you watched and want to see more from GamingBolt, you can always hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell icon next to it. That way you will never miss any of our videos.